Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming. First of all, I would like to thank all those who have shown me support for the past two videos that I did. Thank you for sending me messages and comments and overall enjoying them. I appreciate that. I would like to continue tonight with a few more points that are pretty much continuation of the discussion that we had in the last two videos. I mentioned that we're living, of course, in a time that is monumental, a time that is pretty much coming up to the end of the final battle, which precedes the coming of Mashiach. We had mentioned also that there are many people who seem to be upset, distraught over the fact that what they thought was supposed to happen, what they thought would have been best to happen, has not happened. And we discussed the fact that God's purpose apparently here is to do its best to destroy Amalek, to destroy the left, and not necessarily to have Trump win. Trump did a lot towards furthering the destruction of the left. And even if, God forbid, or what we think, God forbid, he's not going to continue to be president, that which he did took a huge step towards the final destruction of Amalek. I myself was feeling quite a bit upset about what's happening. Even though I understand that it's all God's plan, and even though I understand everything's for the best, but I'm losing patience already. When's it going to happen? When's it going to be? And obviously, our responsibility or our job is to have the patience, to have the faith, to realize that everything that God does is for the best. For example, this clearly, as we mentioned, the separation, the division, the polarization, to weed out the bad, to weed out the left from the right, so that we clearly have purity on the right to be able to move forward. That is obviously what's happening, and that's going to be continuing with God's help. So, as I was thinking a little bit back, and first of all, I heard an interview from one of the big conservative politicians in England, and this was about a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago, and he had mentioned, because at that time, everything looked like it was going on full burners, full speed ahead with the right winning. It looked like the left was done. And he was really very, very happy and discussing how it looks like this is it. This is going to be a tremendous year. This is the September or something, 2019, September, October, something like that. It looks like this is going to be it, because there was absolutely no chance that it's not going to move forward. The economy in the world was moving fast, full speed ahead. In America, it was like the best it ever was. Even in Europe, things were moving with amazing power and strength. You had right-wing, or rather conservative leaders. In England, everyone was the hope of Boris Johnson. It was the hope of what was going to be for the future. You had in Italy, you had Salvini, who was going to be also the hope to move things in the right direction. You had Netanyahu, of course, strong in Israel. And other leaders, there was talk about someone in France, someone in Germany, and in Austria, and everything was it looked like it was just going to be a wave of conservative, of right, that's going to completely destroy the left. And then suddenly everything changed. It's not an accident. It's not an accident. Whether you want to believe conspiracy theories or not conspiracy theories, the bottom line is that things changed. Suddenly, Salvini was not there anymore. Finished, goodbye, you didn't hear about him. Boris Johnson completely turned into something else completely. Netanyahu, quiet, you don't hear about him anymore. And then Trump was, his economy suddenly came as COVID-19, and the economy was put to a standstill. Everything that he was done was completely changed or completely put to a halt, and nothing can move forward. It's not an accident. Not an accident, obviously. Obviously, if everything suddenly changes and the left is powerful again, and the left is strong again, it's obvious that that was a plan. There's a lot of things that we can talk about regarding COVID-19 to clearly show that it's not at all a serious illness. No more serious than a regular flu. In some ways, it's better than the regular flus because it's not affecting children at all. I was a teacher, and I remember what the flu did to a classroom when it was flu season. You know, we had, for weeks, 2/3, 3/4 of the class out. A little bit of a vacation, it was nice, but 2-3 weeks, it was a revolving door of people getting sick, even teachers and everything. Kids were for sure getting sick. And then it passed, it was over, and then everything was back to normal. This COVID-19 was an opportunity that was jumped on by the left to finally take control over the people, clearly. And they took advantage of it. They instilled fear. They worked together with the media. And it's obviously God's plan, because never before was there such a control over the people based upon something completely silly, really. Never before did all the countries, almost all the countries, get together and do the same thing. So again, whether it's conspiracy, whether people got together, whether they had a big meeting and they talked about it, doing it, I don't know. But clearly the result is there, that this is what happened. And if people would just, for example, look at the statistics, they would see that the average age of people who died with the COVID is 83 years old, and the average age of people that got sick, for the most part, there was anything serious, was maybe over 70. People who are younger, 99% of them were healed. So the whole thing was not worth or not worthy of any of the different things that were done to destroy the economies, the livelihoods, the sanity, the mentality of people that has been done. And they're playing with people left and right, and everybody, and people realize it, but there are many people who don't, and that's pretty sad in the way. However, this is clearly the power of the left. As we mentioned, tyranny is the left. Tyranny is anti-God. This is the power of the left that is doing what it always wanted to do for many, many years. They finally took advantage of something that they can immediately use to create immediate fear. Not global warming, it'll happen in 50 years, 100 years, something's going to happen, the world will be destroyed. People say, okay, the world's not destroyed now, what do I care? But this was an immediate fear they were able to capitalize on and get everybody under their control. The situation then could look very dire, could look very serious and very sad, because no matter what way you're going to turn, the media, no, they're not going to be a help. Even judges, even courts, all kinds of things that you would hope to expect to rely on, nothing you can rely on. Only one thing to rely on is God. We have to understand that, especially when it looks like there is no hope whatsoever, that's when God comes and shows us that He's the one in control. He's the one in charge. It's said many times. The Gemara says that this is to teach us, Ein lanu lehishayin ela HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'lvad. We have only one thing to rely on, and that's God alone. I realized that the past year, the amazing difference between what the situation seemed like and felt like a year ago, just a little bit over a year ago, is completely the opposite of what it is now. Excuse me. So, and obviously, this was from pretty much Rosh Hashanah of last year. It apparently seemed that God had set some sort of decree for 2020, or really rather tough Shin Pei, that was going to be a year with the rise of the left. It literally almost immediately started with, like I said, the destruction of Salvini, the basic destruction of Boris Johnson, and the complete destruction of the world economy and mentality and everything with the COVID-19. Now, interestingly enough, COVID-19 started around Purim time. There's a strong connection because Amalek was destroyed, Haman and everything on Purim, and the rise now, more powerful rise of Amalek started on Purim. So we all know that before something is going to be destroyed, God raises them up to the highest level possible that they can be, to give them a real destruction when the time comes. And that's what happened. That's what we're in the middle of seeing. So we have to understand that whatever seeming power that the left has, whatever seeming destruction that they're doing, is not their power, it's their downfall. Because the more power they have, the sooner will come their downfall. And that is something we can be a little bit happy about. However, obviously, it's extremely upsetting to see all the people that are suffering. We have to be strong and realize that, number one, it's far better destruction than other times when people were destroyed. There's no real threat to human life, direct threat to human life. Direct threat, I mean to say, from the government, from pogroms, from things like that. People like to compare what's happening now to Purim. In some ways, it is compared to Purim. And in many ways, of course, it's compared to the final Geula, final redemption, which mirrors what happened in Egypt when the Jewish people led out of Egypt. But it also is extremely similar, almost exactly, to what happened in Hanukkah. And in another class coming up, I will go through the story of Hanukkah and show how what's happening now is exactly the story of Hanukkah. And Hanukkah was also an amazing redemption that we don't realize, because we don't really know the story so much, perhaps, to realize, number one, it's exactly what's happening now, and number two, it's indeed a redemption that is going to hopefully mirror our redemption. Another important point, when the Jewish people were taken out of Egypt, we see this idea of something getting stronger and getting worse before it gets better, as part of the redemption. God told Moshe, to go to Pharaoh, to tell him, let my people go. And he goes, and the story is that God gives him certain signs to show, with the stick turning to a snake, and his hand turning white with leprosy, and stuff like that, and water turning to blood. And people were amazed, and people were impressed. And so he has a crowd of people that are following after him, Moses and Aaron, and a whole crowd of people that are going to go to Pharaoh. And the Torah tells us that when they got to Pharaoh, it was just Moses and Aaron. Everybody had chickened out, and everybody left. Just Moses and Aaron. And people are saying, people don't have the power or the strength to go ahead and fight back against this, the government with the COVID, with Trump's the fraud that took place against Trump, and so people saying, it's terrible, it's crazy, where people should stand up. People should stand up, but the truth is that it's happened before, that people did not stand up, and God was the one that ended up standing up for them. So yes, it would be nice to see people standing up, but we have to constantly remember that God is the one that's going to stand up for us. There was Moshe and Aaron, like starting out with thousands of people behind them, getting to the palace, and they turned back, and there's nobody there, just them two, you know? But they went forward. So what happened? Moshe tells, and Aaron, they tell Pharaoh that God spoke to us, and it's time to let the people go. And Pharaoh says, who's this God? I don't know what you're talking about. God don't tell me nothing. So he says, you guys are lazy. You guys have too much time on your hands. That's why you're thinking about all this wanting to get out. We're going to make it worse. And Pharaoh said, from now on, you're not going to be given straw in order to make bricks. He used to make bricks with mud and straw together, dry it out. That would be the bricks. You're not going to be able to be given the straw like you were. You're going to be having to pick your own straw at night, and then the next day, bring your straw and make your own bricks with the straw you're going to pick. And you're going to have to make the same amount of bricks as you were making when I gave you straw. But people came to Moshe and they said, this is terrible. You're making it worse. You're the great leader. You're the great redeemer. We put our trust in you, and all you did was make things worse. Now, you ruined our reputation with Pharaoh, as if that's so important, but for them it was. And now, he made it worse for us and not better. And Moshe also, he said, this is terrible. You're right. And he calls God, and he talks to God, he said, I understand. This is what you sent me for? To make it worse? You told me that the redemption is here. You told me that I remember the people, and that's why you told me to go. You told me that the redemption is starting, and it got worse. So God says, you will see what I'm going to do. What I'm going to do to Egypt. And how you're going to get out of there. Believe me, with amazing miracles that you've never seen before in your life. I heard from a great rabbi, the Mashgiach in Chavetz Chaim Yeshiva. He said that this is an important lesson. It teaches us that things often have to get worse before they get better. So you would say, oh, of course, everyone knows that. No. Even when the redemption is starting, as part of the redemption, it has to get worse before it gets better. We were remembered already. The redemption's already starting. It's getting worse as part of the redemption, because the worse it's going to get, the more the destruction is going to happen to the left. It's exactly equal. The power that the left has, the more power they have, the more destruction is going to come to them. And yes, it would be great if people would stand up against it. But we should just know, if people can't, it's understandable. And we shouldn't give up because of that. We're the people who are going to fight. We're the people that are, yeah, it would be nice. But it's not necessary. If people can't do it, don't worry. God will take care of it all. God told Moshe, you will see. Don't you worry. And God told Moshe a little bit, I'm a little bit disappointed in you for not trusting me the way Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob trusted in me. When I promised them things, I didn't even show them any of it happening whatsoever. And they trusted in me anyway. That's our message. It's going to get worse before it gets better. It's part of the redemption. And not to give up hope at all, but rather realize that God already started redeeming us. Maybe we haven't seen Moshe Rabbeinu, the leader, yet. Doesn't mean anything. It's going to be very, very good. Very soon with God's help. In the next video, I'm going to discuss, as I mentioned, that my wife has been saying the chapter in Tehillim that is corresponding to the age of Donald Trump, which is chapter 75. Get your books ready because we're going to next video talk about how amazingly this chapter is telling us what's happening in our times right at this moment.